Barabara kabisa na shukran sana Frederick Mwitiriri pamoja na Beatrice Gatonye. Mimi najulikana kama Wahiga Mwaura kutoka stesheni ya Citizen TV. And today, of course, we look forward to what will be a very exciting series of debates for the next couple of hours. And to quote that Greek statesman Pericles, who once said that it doesn't matter if you don't pay attention to politics, politics will pay attention to you. And that's why this afternoon into the evening, we hope that Nairobi residents, specifically the 2.2 million registered voters, will pay keen attention as the 9 men and women that have been cleared by the IEBC to vie in that August 9th poll put forward their agenda. Nairobi residents this evening will get a chance to ask some of the questions, to interrogate the vision, the competence, and possibly the character of those men and women that will be featuring in the auditorium just behind the stage, where that debate will kick off at about 5:30 p.m. Now, some of you may be asking, and my colleagues have really emphasized, why Nairobi? This is the county that provides at least 27% of the country's GDP, the most populated county as well. Last figures showing that it was at 4.4 million. This is according to the 2019 census. And also, it's the only county so far that has gotten a chance to implement and see through Article 187 of the Constitution, with the transfer of functions from the county government to the NMS back in 2020, a transfer that should be expiring within the next couple of months. And that's part of what will form the debate with my panel right here at our Studio B. Briefly, to run you through the program, in about an hour or so, the first debate will kick off 5:30 p.m. and this one will have about 7 candidates, those who polled 5% or less in the last 3 polls according to popularity rankings. And this will be moderated by Safin Achieng Ouma of KBC TV, together with Ayub Abdikadir of K24 TV. That's from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. A short break between 7 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. My panel here will analyze what happened in regards to that. And then we kick off with our second panel at 7:30 p.m. And that will have 2 candidates, those who polled 5% and above in the last 3 opinion polls from a popularity perspective. And that will be moderated by Zubeida Kome of KTN, together with Mark Masai of NTV. Wherever you are seated, prepare yourself, don't move, because we've got a lot lined up for you in the coming hours, including the kind of discussion we'll be having here with my panel, who I want to introduce to you at this time. And I'll start from my far left. We are joined by Karen Wakoli, who's the founder and executive director, Emerging Leaders Foundation. Karen, glad to have you with us.
Thank you.
Right next to her is Professor Alfred Omenya, who is an urban development expert. He also lectures both here and in Australia. I don't know where he finds the time. Prof, thank you so much.
Thank you, Edgar.
Next to him, Philip Kisi, a former town clerk at Nairobi City Council, wears other hats as well, and we'll engage with him as we continue. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
On my immediate right, Wanjiro Gikonyo, who's the national coordinator at the Institute for Social Accountability, also known as TISA. Wanjiro, glad to have you here with us.
Asante.
And we're also joined by Professor Collins Odota. He's an associate dean, Faculty of Law at the University of Nairobi. Prof, thank you
very much, Waiga, and good evening, viewers.
Thank you very much. And I want to start with you, Philip Kisia. You've sat on that seat. You have an understanding from a practical perspective of what it means to be the CEO of this county, even though the functions may have been slightly different under the previous dispensation. What are you looking for this evening from the 9 men and women that will present themselves before the country, that will give you an understanding that this person not only has a manifesto that makes sense for Nairobi, but also understands the nitty-gritties, the deeper issues around what it takes to make Nairobi the kind of city that we'd all, and county that we'd all desire for it to be?
Okay, I think there are basically 2 issues that I will be looking at. One is the issue of competence. You've talked about competence. Does that candidate have the competence required to run a capital city like Nairobi, in terms of management, in terms of leadership? And then, of course, does he have political experience? That's very important, because you're running an institution that requires a combination of all those things I've talked about. The other thing, of course, is, there's been debate of whether having somebody schooled would be desirable to run the county. I can tell you,
without schooled,
yes, at least
basic level.
Education.
Okay.
Basic education. I was talking to Prof just before we got on air, and we agree that basic education is minimum a degree. That should be basic. So, other than those competencies, does the person have passion? Because this is a very thankless job. You know, don't get in thinking that you're going to be glorified. You'll wake up in the morning and receive all manner of abuses, so you'd be ready for it. So if you're not somebody who is passionate about doing this job, please, you're in the wrong space.
Okay, yeah. And I'm sure the candidates are listening to you, and some have already started arriving, and we'll be crossing over to them as soon as we have that opportunity. Wanjiru, for you, and I know for TISA as well, the accountability question, very crucial at this time. Will you be listening to what the candidates will say in regards to the transition from the county to NMS, and how they foresee that transition back once NMS's term expires in the next few months?
Yes, of course, we are very interested in that, because Nairobians have been disenfranchised in terms of the ability to execute our self-governance as anticipated under the Constitution. With the transfer of our functions, public participation has been low, the accountability, the voice of citizens has been low. But I think one of the other things we've been very keen to look at is governance. When you look at Nairobi County, we've been plagued by poor leadership, poor governance. When you look at revenue, because for government to be able to deliver services, you need revenue. The revenue collection has been falling, yet the burden on those paying is very onerous. So where is the money going? It's going into the pockets due to lack of accountability in the revenue collection systems. At expenditure level, also we've had poor governance. So what are the practical proposals on the table around governance? Then the other is inclusion, because majority of Kenyans live in informal settlements. A majority of Kenyans work in the informal sector. Yet we look at Nairobi as the seat of government. We're talking about big business. But where are the majority of Nairobians in the plans of the governor? So these are some of the things we want to hear so that we can have an inclusive, accountable, human rights-based form of government that really creates transformation in Nairobi. I'm glad you brought up the issue of housing, because I know that's a pet topic of Professor Alfred Omenya, who's obviously an urban development expert. What are you hoping to hear, Prof, in terms of how the candidates will tackle two sticky issues? One, what some have described as an unjust transport system that many Nairobians have to bear with on a day-to-day basis, and also an unequal housing system as well. Very few can own their own homes, I think under 10%, and majority rent in one form or the other. And that really is the reality of living in Nairobi County.
Yeah, thank you very much, Waiga. I think you're spot on there that this is one city that is very clear that both national and county governments don't understand. In fact, I've written before about a city without citizens. If you ask these people whom their citizens are and where they are and what they do, they don't know. So we are still in the realm of the colonial city where all of us are meant to be strangers in this place. So you're right, Wahiga. I mean, it'll be quite interesting. Or Nairobians are very excited about the expressway, but then you ask which Nairobians? The expressway, at best, can only ferry up to 2 to 3% of this city. 46% of Nairobians walk to work. I want to hear what the candidates are suggesting about these people. They're the majority. 40% use matatus, chaotic as it is.
So for you, previous slum upgrade programs, plans to have BRTs, etc. For you, not yet.
Is not yet Uhuru. That's 86% in matatus and walking. Then, Waiga, you belong to just 15 to 16% that drive cars, and you're also stuck in traffic jams. So basically, there's no transport in Nairobi at all, even with the expressway, because we can argue that only 4% of the city is catered for now. But then quickly to come to housing, again, we'll be asking, who are these city residents and where do they stay and what type of housing do they need? Wahiga, studies that we're doing now shows that while national government planned to do 500,000 houses, they managed to destroy, during COVID, up to 150,000 houses. In fact, in Mukuru, they destroyed 46,000 houses in one place. So forget about what these guys are saying that they're doing in Pangani.
Okay.
They've not delivered even 4,000 houses. They've managed to destroy, and I do have the statistics, over 150,000 houses on the basis of infrastructure.
And that's
Kenya Power, Kenya Railway, I don't know, Bus Park, Expressway, and so on. So basically, government, the city and the national government have been able to deliver, if you understand maths, about negative 140,000 houses.
Okay, we do understand math.
What they intend to do
and I have another professor on this panel who also has a real keen interest in housing and housing inequality. But before that, let me mention, I've been informed one of the candidates is actually here, and we'll bring you some pictures of that as soon as we have them. Kenneth Nyamwamu, who's a candidate on the United Progressive Alliance party, and I will let you know more about him in just a bit. But Prof. Odote, housing inequality, I know a big concern for you as well. I can allow you to pick up where Prof. Omenya left off.
Yes, I think Prof. Omenya was talking about that the government has created negative 140. I do not know too much maths, but I know that that means instead of creating, they have reduced. But I think the question of housing is a critical issue. Critical for two reasons, Wahiga. Number one, the majority of Nairobians stay in informal settlements. Majority. And if you go into any informal settlement, you know these people suffer from two problems. Number one, they do not own the land on which they sit. So the question about security of tenure becomes a critical issue for them. So they have the risk of always being evicted at every point in time. I would like to hear about practical conversations about how will we stop evictions of people in informal settlements. Because a lot of the times you'll hear people say government will take the land. But the majority of that land is allegedly private land. If you go to Mukuru, for example, the conversation about, so how do we ensure that we have tenure regularization that, A, does not cause problems, but solves the problem. That's the first critical issue. The second critical issue is the access to basic services. In majority of these places, access to water, access to electricity, access to sanitation becomes a huge issue. It is world-renowned that the person in Kibera spends much more money on water than all of us on this set. Correct. Unacceptable in this age and time. And I think the COVID situation made it worse. And I think it's important that the candidates tell us practically what they're going to do about informal settlements in terms of housing. That's, I think, the first thing. The second, and I think that's the point that Prof. Omenya was making, over the last 5 years, as part of the Big Four agenda, government has been telling us that housing is one of the critical things of the Big Four agenda. If you look across Nairobi, you do not see how that housing has been delivered. But there's a third component of housing that I think we miss. I was talking to a friend of mine today morning. If you even go to middle-class areas, go to your Kileleshwa, go to your Hurlinghams, you find that over the last 8 years, with the incoming of Chinese, we have decided to build houses that does not match the services that are available in that place. Places where houses used to be bungalows, where houses used to be 2 stories, we are now at the 20-story buildings. No improvement in service in terms of water, no improvement in terms of sanitation.
Some would say that's just a reaction to our population growth.
Yeah,
and trying to cater for it with the limited space that we have, or how do you see it?
You are saying trying to cater for it. They're not trying. It is catering for itself. The beauty of leadership is to ensure that you solve challenges in a manner that is sustainable. You don't allow things to happen on their own. If you go to any of those places, they are close to a slum. It's unacceptable. And if we go with that trend, we'll have situations where people are busy buying water as opposed to having access to water services. So I want to hear about how the person who comes in is going to solve the problems of Mukuru housing, but at the same time recognize that the people in Kileleshwa also have a housing problem. But two other things that I think are important.
Briefly, please.
I think the two other things that are important for me is I'm looking for a leader who has integrity. So I want to hear questions about what's the integrity of that person, because the amounts of money that this county holds is huge. When the former governor took over in 2017, I was being told this morning, we had a deficit of 15 billion as a county. We're now at 85. That means that we increased by 70 billion. Is it that we have been unable to pay, or that money has been saved for? So I think the issue of integrity is critical. The last issue that's critical, and I think the people who are speaking, I think it's Laila who was talking about it. Nairobi is the international headquarters. You have several UN organizations staying here. So a leader who recognizes that you are not leading my county, Homa Bay. you are leading a city that requires huge profile for the benefit of the entire county. I think it's extremely critical in terms of the conversation.
And I'm sure the people of Homa Bay would hope that Homa Bay will get to the statue of Nairobi as well.
Yes.
But I do get your point, Prof, on the same. And Karen, jumping over to you right now, of the 4.4 million that were identified as residents of Nairobi in the last census, I bet you a majority are young people.
Of course, yes.
You've had the issues raised, transport, housing, inequality, etc. Are young people, does Nairobi offer young people, maybe it's a redundant question, does it offer them opportunities? And what's your concern with the organization you lead this afternoon?
So the organization I lead is called Emerging Leaders Foundation, and the basic thing we do is that we look at the question of values across board, values in government, values in service, in the political space, in community leadership, in every aspect of leadership. So we nurture values-based young people. And so this evening I'll be looking to see, are these individuals presenting themselves to be elected individuals of values? Are they leaders of integrity, like Dr. Odote put it across? Because then integrity and values would actually translate to the quality of their leadership. Like many of us have pointed out, the question about income versus debt and expenditure versus transformation. It's a big question within the city. And like you rightly put it, majority of the population within the city are young people below the age of 35. The issue about insecurity is a big issue. The question about livelihoods, the question about the widening gap between the rich and the poor. What is the agenda of these individuals in terms of reducing that gap and raising up families and individuals from the poverty line, you know, to be able to live lives of dignity? So those are some of the things that are really, really keen for me. Okay.
Yeah. At this moment, I now want to get the thoughts of my panel on the first debate, the one that will kick off in the next hour or so. And of course, this is the 7 candidates who polled 5% or less in the most recent polls. And Wanjira, I want to start with you on this one and get a sense. When I did my own unofficial poll before we started with my panel here, some of you were not aware of some of the names on that list. So what do you do as a candidate this evening when you come for a debate like this? Maybe you're known to some within your spheres of influence, maybe you're not known at all. What do you do to create impact across all TV and radio stations at a moment like this?
Right. I think, first of all, it's great that we have many candidates, because that shows that our democracy is working. Correct. It shows that people have put themselves forward. What we'd like to see from the alternative candidates, if I can call them that, is the agenda.
Many would protest at that.
They might protest. Let me be very careful. Let me be very careful. From the candidates who will be speaking today is agenda setting. Because anytime you have a public platform, more so a platform as esteemed as the gubernatorial, being a gubernatorial aspirant, you have a platform. So you have the opportunity to shape the discussion. So we want to see how well do they understand the real problems of Nairobians, or of Nairobi as a county, as have been espoused here. Because there tends to be a discussion about Nairobi in legal terms, for instance, the NMS conversation. It was very unfortunate that an unconstitutional action that was supported by the head of state and the head of the county government put Nairobi in this situation.
An unconstitutional action signed by the current governor?
It was unconstitutional. We went to court on it. We went to court on it. The court was, gave our ruling that gave government the opportunity to regularize the process. But it was done. It was done illegally. It was done unconstitutionally without public participation. Now, how well do these candidates understand these dynamics? How well do they understand devolution? Because the other thing we have is candidates with very good ideas, but those ideas might undermine the Article 174, the chapter on devolution, in terms of how the implementation will be, how they envisage the implementation. They have an opportunity to frame difficult conversations, especially around accountability. Once you've taken the platform, it's my hope that these candidates will continue to engage and will become a point of accountability, because obviously if your numbers are very low, if you're not on a leading political party, it shows our democracy maybe is not yet mature enough for an independent candidate or for a candidate from a smaller party to win the big numbers. Okay. But we are heading there. We remember during the Moi regime, the opposition had to fight to be profiled nationally, but eventually they made it. So It's to encourage these candidates to say you are breaking ground for us, but please make use of the platform you have beyond maybe just profiling yourself. Stay in the space.
Okay.
Let us know who you are and have a long-term view.
Let me pick up with what you've said with Philip Kisia, who's actually worn the politician's hat before, in addition to being a technocrat. And I'm sure you had the chance in 2013 and 2017 to watch previous debates. How much do these debates sway the views of the electorate, in your view?
Wahiga, let me be very candid.
That's a great way to begin a statement.
All right?
Yeah.
I think I can tell you.
Proceed.
Let me tell you, it has no value. It has
Then what are we doing here?
Wahiga,
Philip Kisia, you're telling me these men and women have gathered.
I said what? I'll be candid. So
Okay.
don't get offended.
You have the diplomatic license
Don't
to
get
be candid.
offended.
But just for today.
But I'm saying that it adds little value. Why am I saying this? There are three fundamental issues that determine who becomes what in the political space in this country. Unfortunately, don't say that I prescribe to what people think, but number one is your tribe. People in this country vote.
Talk about Nairobi.
Even
Nairobi.
I am talking about Nairobi. People look at the tribe. Which tribe are you coming from? Because eventually, when the voter goes to the booth, he'll be voting a tribe, unfortunately. Number two, linked to the tribe is the political party. Which political party is controlling who? Because most of these political parties are not based on any ideology. They are tribal parties. Let me tell you, they have a group of fellows who have come together from different regions and have formed a party or a coalition of parties. Okay? Number three, it's not about ideology, I said. Very unfortunately, number three, right, Wahiga?
I am.
Money. So if you get into this space and you don't have sufficient financial resources to roll out your campaign, you'll be in trouble. Because corporates, people in this country do not invest in politics. They don't give you a time, they don't give you a management information system, they don't give you anything. So they wait until you've crossed the line, then they pick up a discussion with you. But before you cross that line, you are nobody. Those three, I'm telling you, Wahiga,
let me get Prof's reaction to this.
Unfortunate, but that's the reality.
I'm going to come back to you because it sounds like you have a personal story or two behind those. I wouldn't be surprised. But Prof. Omenya, if Philip Kisia is to be believed, to be the next governor of a county like Nairobi or any of the other 46 as well, you need to be from the right tribe,
Right.
aligned with the right political party,
Right.
and have money. Nothing that he has spoken to alludes to all the other things you good folks have mentioned to me this afternoon. Oh, they need to have understanding of this. I want them to articulate. None of that has come up in terms of that success formula.
I think generally, I will not agree with Philip on this one. I think Nairobi and I'm just from Mombasa the other day and so on. Kenya is becoming way more complex than we'd like to accept. Of course, if you look at Sonko's story last time, I mean, if it was tribe, then Peter Kenneth should have won the previous elections. but then, of course, Sonko had many. So we don't know which parameter plays what. But I think, number one, some of these are starting to get overrated. There are some fringe candidates in this country that are making a big impact regardless of their tribe. I mean, let's mention Wajakoya, for example, with his unusual sort of campaigns. And people in Mombasa are saying, look, I mean, we'd rather lose with this guy than all these other fellows who've taken us for a ride for many years. So I think it's actually quite complex. Yes, money plays a big role. The political party does play a big role, I agree. But this city actually has ways of communicating that are very, very interesting. Sorry to use this example, but for example, Kenyans on Twitter, when we complained about the French fries from some country, you know, and it's our children who eat there, KFC started sourcing locally. So let's not underrate, you know, the space and the platform.
Yeah.
But having said that, I think for me, I've had a chance to address the EU Parliament. I've had a chance to address fringe parties in Europe and so on. I would like to say, and this in relation to the candidates, that really politics is not always about winning. Sometimes we get into politics to put a particular agenda on the table. And the politics may not necessarily even be about winning the gubernatorial race. You could put the correct candidate in Babadogo, in, that is pushing some local agenda. And like they say, all politics is local. That's where it starts. And to me, this is the encouragement to all those gentlemen and ladies who are running, that if you do actually have an agenda, put it on the table. Do not be afraid. It doesn't matter whether you end up just winning 2% of the vote and so on. If it's an important agenda for the city, put it on the table.
Okay, that's a good message to them. So for you, you're looking at two things: who would sort of come out on top, but also whose agenda will come out quite clearly. Prof. Odote, I'll come to you shortly, but Karen, I want us to talk about this money tribe political party. You are yearning for more and more young people to get into elective offices. When you hear what Philip Kisias has to say, and he said he's just being honest. He's been out there. I don't know who else might have tried to vie on this. I don't know if anyone else has given it a shot, but he has. And he says this is the reality on the ground. Unless, Karen, you're also looking...
I have been in politics before, but I put it aside to then do the work I'm doing now. But let me also be very honest. Such a debate is a really, really powerful platform for accountability. I have seen communities around the city organizing their own small bringing together aspirants and asking the questions and asking them to sign to peace, to sign to doing certain things once they get elected to office. And there's accountability when it comes to that through, let's say, civil society organizations, communities, and young people. And I do not refute the fact that money plays a big part in who gets elected. And that the political party, again...
I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to give you a chance to carry on. Let me introduce one of the candidates who's just stepped in. This is Nancy Wambui Mwadime of the Usawa kwa Wote party. There she is making her way to this, to her, obviously she'll be escorted to her holding room, where she will then wait for another, possibly 1 hour or under, for the start of the debate that she'll be featuring in. Nancy Mwadime, Usawa kwa Wote, is the political party that she was cleared to vie on under the most recent gazetted IBC list. Nancy Wambui Mwadime is the name, one of the 7 candidates making her way now into this facility here at the Catholic University of Eastern Africa. The debate will be taking place at the Pope John Paul VI Education and Learning Center. And that's where the debate will take place this evening. Both debates and the subsequent debates on the 19th and on the 26th as well. Next week, Tuesday, and the other week Tuesday as well. I'll be introducing the other candidates as they come in. Esther Waringa Thairo, an independent candidate, has also arrived here, and I'll continue giving you those updates. We should have at least 3 now who are present here, if not more. And as soon as the teams give us an update, I will bring that your way. Karen, briefly, I can allow you to finish your point.
Yes, political parties. We have watched the last 1 month, a couple of weeks actually, even today. So Infotrack and TIFA have released polls about political party popularities versus candidates running for office. And you can see some individuals defying the political party lines and going beyond that. So parties, I don't think parties carry so much weight like they did in the past, though there's something around political parties. And in terms of tribe, I am seeing a situation where different political parties are coming together to form the coalition to say, let's run together. And they're not just on one tribe or a couple of tribes, you know. So tribe is really, again, not a big factor. I'm seeing a situation where track record is going to count because there's been a little more awareness about politics and the impact of politics in the quality of life that we live as Kenyans and as citizens. But when it comes to political financing, I believe we're still quite a distance away.
More than the elephant in the room. It makes a big difference.
We still need to work on that because sometimes you find candidates who are awesome, have a track record, are men and women of integrity, but they don't get elected simply because they don't have money or they do not want to bribe to then get elected into office.
Prof. Odote, pick up off the back of that, and I'm sure you have reactions to what some of the other panelists have said. Even as you tell us, we've seen an emerging trend. It started in the States. Obviously, presidential debates have been happening there long before, we started here in 2013 under the 2010 Constitution, where candidates intentionally stay away from debates. Is that a strategy? Does it work? Does it matter?
I think it does for those who stay away, because you assess yourself and determine, this is not my strong point. I do not want to make my bad situation worse. I do not want to ensure that or I don't want to give preference to my opponent. I think my opponent is a better debater. My opponent has a better track record. So I don't want to expose myself. That's the reason why people stay away. So they stay away because of strategy. But I think your original question to us was the people who are coming between 5:30 to 7:30, those who are below 5%. What should be their strategy for this debate? And I think the people who are coming between 5:30 and 7:30, from the numbers, I think they cannot run the campaign as those above 5%, because those above 5%, then the factors that, especially the first two factors that Philip spoke about, becomes critical for them. The factor of the tribe gives you recognition. The factor of the political party gives you recognition. The reality is that those two factors don't give recognition to the people below 5%. So they must play on something else. And that's the critical question. And I think playing on something else today becomes a critical day for them, because playing on something else means that you must have some issue on which people recognize you for. I don't want to talk about this election, but remember Mwalimu Dida. We still all remember Mwalimu Dida. From where?
Do you remember what issue he stood for?
No, but we remember him from the debate. Not because of the issue,
from the debate.
Yes, and you remember him from the debate because the strategy for Dida was not the issue. The strategy for Dida was to come to you as this simple Kenyan who represents you, who is able to avoid complicated things and speak. Even until today, there's jokes on Twitter about Dida commenting about this election, and you will listen to it. If I ask you, who are the other presidential candidates? You won't remember 5 of them. Yes. So I think that the person who comes today, if you are these 7 people, you must ask yourself, I want to leave a mark on the minds of Nairobians. And remember, there are 24% of Nairobians, at least according to the polls, that are undecided. Those people are not thinking about the tribe. They're not thinking about they're looking for something different. So your duty must to give them that something different. The question is, what do you consider as that something different? And for me, looking at 5:30 to 7:30, that's all I'll be looking for. What is it that is different in this person that will make me stop and listen to? Because that's what the Nairobian will listen to. If you go to Germany, for example, there's a party that only stands on environment. Correct. That's all. So they only want to appeal to you. They don't care about the other things. So you must be able to fashion yourself, if you're these 7 people, on something that people can be able to say, wait a minute, although I thought Waihiga was my candidate, I actually think Shiro is talking about something that I should stop at listening.
Resonates with
yes.
Philip, you took us on a tangent. We've gotten lost in it. You vote, but you've been told, however, that there are fringe candidates who lack some of the things you've mentioned, but still make an impact. Do you agree that anomaly can happen? And if you've seen such examples, what are those other factors that these fringe candidates have beyond money, tribe, and power and access to it that could make a difference in a race like this?
Waihiga, sometimes it is better to be brutally honest to yourself. Now what I've said is from my heart.
You do not retract it?
I'm not going to retract it, because that is the bitter truth. Now, just before I answer your question, I think the debates are very important. I cannot, underscore the importance of such a debate. As a matter of fact, if you go back to history, NCBDA, where was the chairman, was the first one to organize a presidential debate. You can check the records, okay? So I put a lot of weight on such a debate. Now, let me just very quickly comment on what my brother Prof. Omenya said. In politics, you have no business being number 2. Because if you are number 2, you cannot sell your agenda. You get into political space so that you can get power. Yes. You don't get in there to be number 2. Number 2 is irrelevant. Actually, number 2 is no better than number 10. You're all the same. Because you've all lost. Okay?
Well, totally disagrees with you.
You've completely lost.
You'll have the right to reply after this.
One second. And once you've lost, you become irrelevant. That's the bitter truth. In Kenya, you can ask many people who have been there, including myself. You know, unless you have something else to offer, Kenyans beyond politics. Okay? Now, if things like track record were to be taken into account by political parties in this country, Philip Kisia would have been a governor because of a track record. Jim Nambaru would have been a governor because Jim Nambaru has a track record. Even Peter Kenneth, who tried, and I warned him, and I told him, Peter, once you miss that ticket, once you miss that ticket, please just step back and start lobbying for a job. That's the reality. So,
what did he respond?
Of course, he never listened to me. You know,
well, he's not here to give his side of the story.
I heard somebody talk about Kenyans on Twitter. People on Twitter don't vote. Go and check. The guys who vote, the 24% profits talking about, those 24% are waiting for direction from either Baba or the hustler man. They're waiting. Like in Nairobi, they're waiting to hear. Baba has not come to tell us which is the direction. Are we voting for A or B? Once Baba gives that direction, you can be sure. You can be sure, because if you look at the two candidates,
talking about the two that
if you look, the two that are polling beyond 5%,
right?
If you analyze that data that we have, you'll find that 20% of people supporting Raila in Nairobi are not supporting the Azimio candidate. So what are they waiting for? Are they waiting for Baba to talk, to say something? Are they waiting for that? But I can tell you the issue of competence here will not count. You can wait until maybe in future. In future, things like experience, competence, integrity. In fact, when you look at integrity,
yes,
integrity is about number 10. Go and check. Infotrack, go and check on TIFA. People don't care about integrity. In fact,
actually, the biggest concern
most of the times, if you've stolen public funds, you become a fan of the people. If you've stolen public funds, because then you're able to do what? To deal with their stomachs. Tumbo policy. You remember what Moi said? The Moi. So if you can, you know, and the voter will tell you. You know, when I was going around the Westlands, the voter would tell me.
This is a fun example for this one.
Yes. My personal example.
Yes.
They will tell you, no, Kiongozi, we've had you. We know you're competent. What are you giving us now?
Yeah.
Forget about talking.
That's true.
Weka kitu kwa meza sahi.
This just a few months back.
Yeah, I mean, about 7-8 weeks ago.
7-8 weeks.
Forget about what I was talking to them. My ideology, my level of integrity, my experience. All those put in one basket. To them didn't make sense. What made sense is how much Kiongozi. And when they tell you, Kiongozi, we've not seen you on the ground, it does not mean that they have not seen you. It means they have not tested your money. Go and ask Jim Nambaru. Go and ask Jim Nambaru what happened to him, how many votes he got, and he's a billionaire. I'm not a billionaire. He's a billionaire. Go and ask my friend Peter Kenneth what happened to him in 2013. And I told him, please step back and go and look for Uhuru. He'll give you a job. He never listened to me.
Right.
Where is he now?
Philip Kisia, I need to speak to all those individuals and get their side of the story. What do you know?
Right, yeah, Philip is...
It may be hard truths, but it sounds like he knows something. He's been there.
He has been there. He has been there. There's a dispensation we are moving from, the winner takes all dispensation, which the Constitution tries to temper. And the reason I disagree when you talk about fringe candidates, number one being the only important candidate, that's not true. Legislation in the House can be brought by any party. So by virtue of a fringe candidate profiling themselves, that party has got members, some of whom will run at MCA level. So the moment you're profiling your political party, it's not just one seat we are looking at. There's the governor, there is also the MP, there's also the important seat of the MCA. And an MCA in the House has a vote that counts for citizens. So I don't agree that it's a winner takes all. Our Constitution has sought to remove that winner takes all approach. Now, I do agree, unfortunately, that politics has become a lot about money. Our electoral system is still broken, but we are in the process of trying to reform it. And how are we trying to reform it? When you have fringe candidates putting forward an agenda that they can then popularize with the public, you put pressure on whoever will get into that seat. And I think the last point I want to make is the Constitution envisages a consultative, cooperative approach of government. Now, our Constitution isn't perfect, our political framework is not perfect, but it is not a winner-takes-all. You have seen decisions of the president being countermanded, whether it's by the courts, whether, in fact, court action taken by civil society institutions or individuals like Omtata can go to court and hold the president to account. So every political space counts. We are no longer in the winner-takes-all dispensation, and we must encourage Kenyans to be bold. Stand up, but also know that you've got a lot of political clout that you can pull from very many corners. So it's not just the governor. One of the challenges the governors have faced, and this is where I agree in our kind of very poor political culture, is the role of the MCA. So much as a governor is going to come and give us a political promise, they then have to deal with the politics of running the county, the civil, the public service, but also the county assembly. And this has been a real weak link in terms of devolution. So fringe candidates are like the main candidates of the larger parties operating in a very imperfect system, but we have the opportunity to set agendas. Even as civil society, we also set agendas. We have passed policies. We have gotten laws passed, even in this county. And we do it with, in some cases, with nominated members.
And I think for you, setting the agenda is so crucial, sometimes even more crucial than winning.
More crucial than winning. The gap we have is implementation. The non-implementation is a challenge that plagues all. And so we still need to push with accountability. So no, fringe candidates have a role. There's a lot of opportunities for power and pushing. Let us take them. Let us encourage fringe candidates. Let us encourage those out there and get rid of the winner-takes-all mentality. That one is not right, and it's not taking us forward.
Okay. Wahiga, I wish to add to that.
Okay.
You say that the number one issue of concern for Nairobians is the cost of living.
Cost of living.
But you see how that is actually directly related to the question of values and integrity. So right now, as candidates are busy campaigning, people are saying, give me something for me to listen to you, for me to listen to what you have to offer. They will go ahead and give them that something they want, but how will they recoup that money? They get into office, they will look for the slightest opportunity to actually make their money back. So it's more now about self-interest and not the interest of the public at heart. So again, it brings us back to the question of values, that integrity actually counts. It's the cornerstone, and it determines the question about whether people live in dignity or not.
And Philip Kisia says he's never been asked about integrity questions when he goes on the campaign trail. It's a different question altogether. And you rated integrity very high. In fact, I think you are the first one on this panel to say, that's what I'll be listening out for. Compare and contrast what you're feeling today with Philip's honest statement that I think it might matter here, but it might not matter on the campaign.
I think we are talking about two sides of the same coin. So I think there's a point that everybody is making. The point that Philip is making is that the current situation is that this is what people look for, that you're either number one or last. I think this debate, in my view, is not about what is. This debate is about what should be. Because the debate, if my understanding of the role of the media is, it's also about shaping public opinion. So if any of these people who have below 5 is going because he wants to be number one, that is his principal motivation. To be brutally honest, to borrow the words of Philip, are in the wrong space. But if they recognize the role that they are playing in this process, and that role is to bring us to a situation where the person who runs should not be winning based on lack of integrity. They should not be winning based on tribe. They should not be winning based on political party only. And I think they have a critical... But if you look at this election, Wahiga, the thing that is interesting, I was telling somebody that I think except for very few... Look at those who have been declared elected and opposed in this election. How many? Just 2. 2, or actually 3. 1 women rep from Kericho and 2 MCAs from the Rift. Across the country, many of the places, before, if you are from the right political party, after nominations, you came to Nairobi and waited to be elected. I can guarantee you, Wahiga, the bulk of the MPs are in the village because there's no guarantee. In fact, the political party has become a yoke in many of their necks.
Yes.
So Kenya is changing, which is a nice thing. The one place where we haven't changed is money. I think the amount of money being dished out by a political party, in fact, you go to a rally, people don't want to listen to you. They want to line up. So for me, I see the candidates coming today, moving us away from this thing about integrity does not matter. Moving away from this thing about, you know, if I'm from the wrong political party, if I'm from the wrong tribe, I will go nowhere. And I think there's a critical role for that to happen.
The latest survey, I believe, by a research institution was that you need about 26 million to be a member of parliament in this country, 39 million to be a senator. And that's in terms of what you know, mobilization, and of course all these other things that Philip Kisi has spoken of. And if you spend 40 million on your campaign, what are you hoping to recoup once you get into office? Prof, we need to move forward. We need to talk about NMS. We need to talk about the intro of the next governor. But I know you might have a final comment on this.
Yeah, but my brief comment on this is that we really need to look at this from a governance point of view rather than an individual. In fact, I think Philip could have gotten into trouble because he was, you know, the star performer outside there. Myself, I'm quite excited that, you know, we have almost 7 parties represented here on this gubernatorial debate. But also, what kept coming to mind, Nairobi has been terrible in terms of participation and engagement of citizens, hence the NMS issue. But then I was thinking about Mandera. That has been amazingly stable, where we had a governor who actually had no MCS. All MCS came from the opposing party. And when I sat with Roba and asked him, how is he governing the county? He told me, no. There are systems, there are programs, there's agreed, the MCS consult, there are house committees and so on, and it is his role as a governor to implement. And I was like, oh, I wish so many other governors would look at this. And I think that's the biggest problem with this country and is the biggest problem with this county. They must start to understand that what we're trying to create is a political system, is a governance system. We are not looking for stars who are going to mesmerize us with brilliant ideas. We are looking for people who will go and have debates with those fellows who cannot understand policy, but get to the heart of their problem and start engaging them. People will listen to parties and what parties are putting on the table. People will sit down with MCAs and the agenda and convince them. You know, people would actually develop a plan and implement it. Not these useless buffoons, you know, wearing gold dog chains and entertaining people. You know, those people have no space in governance. The future doesn't belong to them.
I think we will leave it there for now. Let's switch gears. Let's talk NMS a little bit, because you cannot talk about Nairobi County for the last 5 years without referencing NMS, its record, what worked in your view, what didn't work as well. Wanjiru already made her feelings quite clear, so I'll come back to you shortly. Let me hear first from you, Philip Kisia. When the history books are written of the tenure of the NMS, what will they say about NMS in your view? What did NMS get right? What did it get wrong? Even as we discuss how it got into office.
Now, I think our sister, Wanjiru, made it very clear that the route that the government took to put NMS in place may have had some faults. It was maybe, for a lack of a better word, it was illegal, because it did not involve the people who are being governed. But that aside, was it necessary, given the time that this presidency had left? He had I think 2 or 3 years left in office, and Nairobi being the capital, he had to take action. So maybe, other than blaming the person who took action, we probably need to relook at the act that governs counties. How fast can we remove a governor who is not performing? Because the process is too tedious. It takes time. By the time you remove him, his time is over. So back to NMS. NMS, of course, I think if, in terms of short term, there's something that you can see. There are roads that have been fixed. Mm-hmm. There are pedestrian walkways that you can see. There are hospitals, dispensaries which have been built, but I'm told there's no medicine, but at least there's something. So they've done something. But I can tell you, from where I sit, they could have done much better given the resources that have been deployed to NMS.
Okay, and that's why I'll interrupt you because I'm told we have an update we need to give, but I'll come back to you as we dig deeper into those 4 functions that were allocated to the NMS: health, transport, public works and planning, as well, and development services. But first things first, we continue to, and of course my colleagues are across this campus here at the Catholic University of Eastern Africa, really trying to get you updates as and when we have them. Let's now hear from Leila Mohammed and Francis Gashuri as more candidates continue to stream in. Leila and Gashuri?
Thank you very much, Waihiga. Indeed, the